Hey, Erik. How's it going?
All right, welcome to the Math Assistance Center today. If you haven't signed in, please sign in. There will be a drawing at the end there. There's snacks in the back there. It's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Kaylee Tuttle, who's a faculty member here at Western, and she's here to talk about zombie statistics and numbers that just won't die. So I'm excited.
Yes, all right. How many of us have taken a statistics course before? A couple of us. Okay, so I promise not to scare us too much with the numbers. I promise. But I had to do a talk on zombie statistics, especially since it is October. It just seemed fitting. So what are zombie statistics? When I'm saying zombie statistics, these are statistics that are wrong when we're talking about them, misleading, or maybe even outdated. So they keep popping up, all right, like they're coming back from the dead. That's why we like to call them zombie statistics. They're just something that we cannot get rid of. But why do they keep rising from the dead? Why are these zombie statistics plaguing us still? There's a couple different reasons. Oftentimes these statistics are catchy, easy to remember. They're memorable, they're repeated a lot in the media or like TV shows. And oftentimes we are more likely to accept something if it's something like confirmation bias, so something that we agree with. We are more likely to just accept. So that is what a zombie statistic is. It is something that is not necessarily true. It could be outdated, so maybe perhaps in the past it's been true, but no longer holds, that we still keep hearing today. Oops, wrong way. So, has anyone heard, by a show of hands, that we only use 10% of our brain? Yes, this is a huge one. In fact, back in the 2010s era, there was like a show or a movie where it was talking about trying to open up more than 10% of our brain and all the things that we could do. Now, this is in fact wrong. So why do you think that we hear it being said so often? It's a nice, easy number, 10%. We only use 10% of our brain. Makes us feel better about ourselves. We're like, wow, I'm smart now. Could you imagine if I'm using all of my brain power? Right?
That's just scary.
Yes. So our first zombie statistics that we're talking about is brains, right? We only use 10% of our brain. It's not really known where this actually started. We would like to think that it came through in the early 1900s with a psychologist named William James, who talked often about like us not using our full potential in some of his papers in psychology. So that is assumed kind of where it came from. But again, this was the early 1900s, over 100 years ago. So obviously we've come quite a far ways from there. So in reality, we have imaging now, like PET scans, that can show that we are, in fact, using all areas of our brain. So unfortunately for us, we're already using more than 10%. But like we said, it's an easy number to remember. It's 10%. And it makes us feel good. It's like the confirmation bias, like, yeah, we can be so much smarter, but we only use 10% of our brain. That's all we have unlocked. We would like to think that we have the ability to be superhuman. So it is something that is oftentimes ran around. Yeah. The second one, the corpse bride, right? How many of us have heard that half of all marriages end in divorce? Yes, that's one that's thrown around all the time. It's like, hey, if your parents aren't divorced, mine are, right? 50-50 chance. That is actually not true. Again, a zombie statistic. That half of all marriages end in divorce. This actually comes from a 1980s projection. So oftentimes, when we are using statistics, we are trying to use mathematical models to project future outcomes. Now, whether or not those future outcomes follow our projections, we don't know until it actually comes to fruition. So, in the 1980s, they said, yeah, 50% of divorce, marriages end in divorce. When in fact that is not true. We find that around the U.S. divorce rate is about 30 to 35% right now. And there's a ton of different things that go into that, right? Are as many people getting married as they used to in the 80s? Are we looking at just first-time marriages, or are we looking at people that have been married and divorced and then remarried? Does that change our outcomes? All of those answers, yes. So there's a lot of different factors that go into it. But again, this is an easy number to remember, 50%, right? 50% ends in divorce. So here is our little numbers, right? So it's important to, when you are finding your information, you're getting it from reliable sources. Okay, so this comes from the CDC, which is about as reliable as we can get for now. And so it has these huge numbers. So this is from 2000 to 2023, and the data that is shown is the provisional from 2023. So again, when you're looking through the data, it found that a couple states did not give information for this data, and they do say the states that don't come with it. But the number of marriages was 2 million and some odd amount. And so it made a little bit of marriage rates, was like 6.1 per 1,000 people total, which makes sense. We were like, oh, no one's getting married, right? And that's not technically true, right? When we're talking about people total population, we're including children that are just born, people that are elderly, and these are the populations of people getting married per year, right? From there, we also have that 2.4 divorces are happening per 1,000 in the population. And this is, again, only reporting of 45 of the 50 states. And so oftentimes we're like, no, the number is tiny, itty-bitty. But we have to, again, think this is the amount of marriages for that single year versus the amount of divorces for that single year. Those people getting married that year does not mean those people that are shown in divorces were married that year. So the populations are different than we're looking at, right? They're not actually accurate. And even if we went off of this, 2.4 divided by 6.1 is still less than 40%. So it's still lower than what we would expect. Right here is a little bit of from the PDF of the actual divorce rate. So it has the populations, marriages, and the years, and then those divorce rates as well per 1,000 people. Once again, if you are not familiar with how to read through statistical analysis or graphs, it's easy to get these numbers incorrect or just take them at face value, which makes them worrisome or scary, right? They're zombies. They're coming after us. All right. Spiders. How many of you guys have heard the saying that we eat spiders at night without knowing it? That one's huge. We never, there's actually no real statistic behind this. It's completely false, okay? We don't talk about it. It's actually unclear from where this idea actually originated from, but they think it came in the early 90s is when we first started seeing it. And I don't know about you guys, but I remember being told it when I was a young child. And they're like, oh, did you know, like, on average, you eat, like, 4 spiders a year? And I was like, this is the worst thing ever. So there is a lack of scientific evidence. If you wanted to look this up, find any kind of resources, see if there's any studies done on it, there are not. You know how hard it would be to create an experiment in which you are being watched to see if spiders crawl into your mouth and then you eat them. It'd be a whole bunch of work. But it does have that wow factor, that fear, and you're like, that could happen. I mean, spiders are small enough. Like, that's happened before where like people wake up and they have like a spider in their ear or something like that. So why not in the mouth, right? So talking to some entomologists and things like that, it kind of goes against spider behavior in general. Okay, most of the time spiders are not coming up to humans of their own volition. Okay, they usually stay away for the most part. So it goes against their behavior, let alone going into your mouth. You're breathing out a whole bunch of carbon dioxide. They're not super into that. It's also theoretically very unlikely. So again, we're thinking statistically, and even theoretically, the probability of this happening is very, very low. And then finally, it's just, it gets around because it's that shock factor. Something interesting that we might see. So that one's always a fun one. Okay. Trying to make this as spooky as possible. Has anyone watched The Sixth Sense? Yeah? You guys are like, yes. So we always are told that we as humans only have 5 senses, right? And that's been told since it feels like the dawn of time. That's not always true, right? Nowadays we have neuroscience, new fields, and it's often shown that on minimum, technically, we have about 9 different senses, maybe even more. So these senses are things like balance, so our equilibrium counts as a type of sense. Temperature, being able to feel and understand pain, is a type of sense that some people are born without. As well as body awareness. So there's a couple different ones that you could see. Now, 5 senses, again, is what we usually go with, like hearing, smelling, seeing, tasting, and touch. And that's because it goes all the way far back as like Aristotle. So back in the day with the philosophers, making them like a true classic. So it's kind of just what we go towards. It's what we know. And oftentimes what we think we know, we hold on to, right? So this is how it's always been. So that's what I'm going to say, even though now we have neuroscience and there's different things that we come about. Beautiful. All right, don't get bit. How many of you guys like to watch the news? Any of us? You guys are like, no, we don't watch the news.
I step on that all the time.
Yes, it's always on. The news is always on. So yeah, actually a lot of my students tell me they don't watch any kind of news sources, not even on like TikTok. You guys don't like follow anything on TikTok? Yeah. You're like, I just don't watch. That's okay. When I was younger, I wasn't really watching the news either. But when I was, it was usually something negative, right? Like crime rates, things bad happening. And so we have this idea that crime rates are at an all-time high, right? That's what we're hearing. That's what we're thinking. Crime is worse than ever. But in fact, actually, crime is down. Crime is down, you guys, at least when we're talking about violent crime rates in the U.S. In fact, those violent crime rates peaked in the 1990s and really have started to slowly fall since then. But it doesn't feel like that because we have so much access to media and things like that, so it's more in our faces than it used to be in the past, which again becomes a little bit worrisome. So the FBI puts out, again, statistics at the end of each year, talking about the different kinds of rates and crimes and things happening. So actually, in the year 2023, it's the newest one that we have going right now, the crime rates are the lowest they've been since 1969 for violent crimes. So are there other crimes? Perhaps. But our violent crimes, homicides and things like that, are at an all-time low. They did peak in 2020 during COVID, but they've gone down since then. So, wonderful. Like I said, oftentimes the media, what we're looking at, especially when we have such access to things like that, make it seem like there is a lot more going on than perhaps there is, or makes it feel like there is more going on than there used to be. All right, so why in the world do these zombie statistics continue to spread? We talked about this a little bit, but they're catchy, those one-liners that we like to say, you know, oh, half of marriages end in divorce, you know, I only use 10% of my brain. And media repetition as well, so we'll see it in movies, things like that. And it just makes it easy to understand and remember. So as we get farther and farther into life and more information is thrown at us, it's harder to know if the information given to us is correct, right? In the past, most of the information that we could get our hands on was usually peer-reviewed and understood. But nowadays, information can be spread very quickly with people with large platforms that might not have the background to be making these decisions or showing this information. And as you guys have seen, sometimes the graphs are really hard to read. Sometimes the papers, you know, have all this statistical jargon in it. It can be really hard to understand. So oftentimes we grab onto those numbers and misrepresent them, which is a bad thing. So it is important to take a statistics class and make sure that you have statistical literacy for our general population, because so much of what we do in life has to do with statistics, whether it's saying, oh, you know, like take this supplement, it's been peer reviewed, it's been third-party tested, right? Where is that third-party coming from? Who is it? What did they find? You have to be willing to do the hard research for yourself, which can be very daunting, very scary. And that is why we often have these statistics spread even farther. So how in the world do we kill a zombie? Statistic. Shoot it right in the head. Go for the source, right? Yes, so I said that. Yeah, go for the head. We have to kill a zombie statistic by going to the source. We have to go to reputable sources. We have to figure out where the numbers are coming from, where we're hearing them. So if someone's just telling you, oh, 50%, you ask, where did you hear that? You know, oftentimes my mom likes to throw things out. And I'm like, where did you hear that? She's like, a reel on Instagram. And I'm like, okay. She's like, they said they were a doctor. And I was like, were they trying to sell you something? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, maybe not. So we have to ask ourselves, where did this statistic come from? Is it from the paper that they're talking about, or are they citing or sourcing something that you have not yet read? Okay, we also have to check if it is a percent or a raw number. Are we looking at a percentage? Are we looking at a raw number? What is the population that it is coming from? Is it accurate to the population that you are looking at? Can it be used as that representation? What is this context? The time, the place, the group, okay? Like we said, that 50% of divorce rates, that came from a 1980 study. That is forever ago, okay? We don't like to use, you guys are like, whoa, that was not forever ago. When we are citing sources, we don't like to go past more than 10 years, right? When we're citing sources in our papers. Same thing here. We want to make sure that the information that we're getting is up to date. And so that is where it comes with the, is the data current? Now, was it forever ago? No, I'm not saying that it was a long time ago. But if we're looking at data, we like to keep it current. And so, yes, we want to make sure that it was recently done. Finally, our survival. We got to survive the zombie apocalypse, okay? And there's a couple things that we can do. Zombie statistics are catchy, but they're almost always wrong, okay? Almost always. There's some in there that are real or true. Math literacy is our best survival weapon, okay? Math is so, so important. I know we're throwing in that word literacy with math, and you're like, oof, reading and math? I don't think so. But it's the best thing that we can do. It's important for us to read through something and question it, okay? That's what makes us stronger than them, right? Stronger than the statistics. We have to really ask why or how is this happening, okay? It's an important skill to use, and it's okay to be questioning of something given to you. You should always question what is given to you and look into the information yourself to make sure that you are understanding it and knowing what's happening, okay? It's a huge part of life. So don't be a zombie, okay? You got to check your statistics before you spread them. It's a huge thing. All right, do we have any questions? Concerns? All right, that is all I have for you guys today. Hope you learned a little bit about literacy and mathematics. A wonderful, wonderful day, you guys. Chuck, I believe, is going to call out the winner. So has everyone signed in? If you haven't signed in, please come